On today's show, who's working out for the Mavs right now? Who should the Mavs take in the draft? We have the draft expert himself, Rafael Barlowe, on the show to talk about that. And then later, we will profile Ismael Kamagate. Is he the center the Mavs should take in the draft? Talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow is to comment anything below. Let us know. Who do you want the Mavs to take in the NBA draft? It's time. It's time to decide. We've done a bunch of profiles. We got Rafael here. He's going to be answering the questions. Who do you want them to take? Joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor, writer at Mavs.com, the draft dude, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
I'm just hyped that we have Rafael here. He's the man. I feel like his pod's been the pod I've been listening to the most over the past few weeks.
And you're not blowing smoke. Like literally once a day, Isaac will come and be like, Rafael said this on his show today. Like we gotta talk about this. Like, I don't know what I think about this.
I don't listen to many Locked On shows now, but I do listen to Rafael.
Come on.
I don't listen to many podcasts as much as I used to, but I do listen to Rafael's. He's literally one of the best in the business. I've said this on the pod before, but one of my favorite things to do is when I see Rafael in the press box at the Mavs, I'm like, hey, where have you been? And he's like, I've been to Italy, Paris, these different places. And he literally travels the globe and sees players. So thanks for hopping on, joining us. Are you ready for this to be over, or are you just like, hey, no, this is Christmas?
Well, now I have to live up to that crazy introduction. No pressure. Yeah, I'm actually kind of looking forward to looking at the 2023 draft. I feel like I've spent so much time in the 2022 draft. I started covering it or studying for it back in July. So it's almost a full year, and I'm just looking forward to draft day. That's like my favorite holiday. But I think it's going to be a very interesting draft night.
It's a good day. You'll have us covered all over at Locked On NBA Big Board, the podcast, the YouTube channel, all that. Also, the NBA Big Board, the newsletter, obviously, that Chad Ford handed down to you. You were anointed as the next guy. Chad Ford gave that newsletter to you. You should go subscribe to that. And let's just start right away. Who do we know of that the Mavs have worked out? Because we don't usually hear of the Mavs working out draft prospects. It's something that they keep really tight-lipped. There are teams like the Lakers and other teams that will do interviews on their YouTube channel with these prospects and show them off and do this whole thing and this song and dance. The Mavs usually don't release any of this information. And I wondered if that was going to be the case still with Nico Harrison, this new regime in here. But Rafael, who do we know that has worked out for the Mavs so far?
Yeah, to piggyback what you were saying, like Charlotte, they have a whole Instagram page of all their guys working out. I think the Pacers do too.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting how every team does something a little different. Some teams don't leak any information. And now that you've mentioned it, the Mavs haven't been a team that you see a lot of info regarding who they worked out. Ever. I have heard that they've worked out Ismael Kamagate, who I'm pretty high on, Christian Koloko, another center from Arizona, and then Musa Diabate from Michigan. So those are the only three that I've heard that they worked out. Somebody had mentioned some other guys, but when I talked to a person on the staff, he had mentioned that they didn't start their workouts until last week. So some of the other rumors that guys had been working out for them earlier in the month, it seems like that was false information.
Yeah, because I think was it Hugo? I think
Hugo Besson.
Yeah, so
you know the name better than me.
You got to add the French
twist
to it, because I was calling him Besson, but then he was working out. He's doing his pre-draft stuff here in Dallas, and it's like Hugo Besson.
Oh, Hugo. But no, I think he has the same. He has Njai here in Dallas, similar agent or same agent as Kamagate, same agent as Nick Batum. A lot of French guys, Wembanyama, Rudy Gobert. And I know we'll talk some about Kamagate and stuff, but a lot of Mavs connections with Njai, which I think you know personally. I think.
Yeah, I know Boona pretty well, and it's funny because Boona's first client was DJ Banga. So
wow,
back in the
throwback.
Day.
Yeah, and he had Mahimi also. So he has very strong ties to the Mavericks organization.
NBA champion Jan Mahimi. Okay,
NBA champion Jan Mahimi. But he got paid.
He's just sitting back waiting for Victor Wembanyama. But it's along those routes. Let me just ask you this. So Jake Fisher, a few days ago, Bleach Report had the report that, hey, Dallas could be one of these teams that could be looking to take a guy to draft and stash. If Dallas goes that route, is Kamagate one of those guys that could be a draft and stash? If not, who's another one of those names in that range that could be a draft and stash type of guy?
Yeah, I don't think Kamagate would want to be stashed. I think he's ready to come over here, and I think that would have to be something probably negotiated. I mean, it's interesting that he mentioned the Mavs are a team that would draft and stash a guy. I think Dallas could find some guys in this range, in the range that they're in, that should be able to come in and contribute. So yeah, I find that pretty interesting. As far as draft and stash guys, it could be somebody like a guy named Yannick Sosa, who a lot of people thought was a top 5 pick coming into the season, but he had a absolutely horrible year. The details around it are pretty limited. I think he had an injury starting the season. It didn't sound like it was a major injury. Maybe it was like a groin injury or something like that. Got off to a really slow start. Didn't progress like people thought. So he could be somebody that they say, all right, well, he was thought to have top 10 potential. He's not ready yet. We can draft him in the first round, which is higher than I expect him to go right now. Maybe stash him and develop him, then have him come along later on. That's probably the first name that comes to mind. And then, I'm just assuming that they're going to look to address their need for like a athletic rim protector, vertical lob threat. And that's one of the first names that comes to mind.
Let's get into some of those vertical lob threat, the bigs, the centers around where the Mavs are going to pick. If they just keep this pick at 26 and they make a selection, are, to me, at least Koloko and Kamagate, the two guys that you mentioned the Mavs have worked out. And then Walker Kessler is the other guy I've seen in that 26 range. What do you think about those centers? And is there anybody else that the Mavericks would consider in that spot if they were going to go center?
How long did it take you to get Walker Kessler right and not call him Kessler Walker?
Or Kessler Edwards, or like just confuse his name.
I mess it up every time. And but no, I think if it were up to me, which is totally not, I would go with Kamagate first. I just love the energy that he brings. He's someone that runs the floor hard every possession. He's a late bloomer. I kind of have a soft spot for late bloomers in a sense, because they usually kind of have like this chip on their shoulder. And when I spoke to him a few months back, I had mentioned to him that during 2019, I went to this under 18 national team, and he was on the French under 18 team, but he didn't play. And here it is, 3 years later, he's a potential first round pick. And it's just a testament to the work that he's put in. He's been working out with Gobert. And I think, and I had mentioned it to you offline, I think he could have a similar development as Clint Capella. Capella was a late first round pick.
He did an interview with you and compared himself to Capella. It was like the big thing that he was like, I want to be Clint Capella.
And Capella was a Boona Njai client before. So Boona played a role in the development. Capella was a late bloomer. And if you remember, he spent the entire first year in the G League. And then Houston brought him up in the playoffs as Dwight Howard's backup. And then I think the next year he was their starting center. And then even if you look at Rudy, I mean, that would be best case scenario, Rudy Gobert. But Gobert spent his first year playing for the Bakersfield Jam. So Boona does have an eye for talent and developing some of these bigs, and they've all kind of maximized their draft potential or draft spot. So I think Kamagate could be next in line.
So Kamagate, we're going to do our draft profile about him at the end of this episode, but the difference between the league that he was in last year and the league that he's in this year, like and the step up to what the college game is and what the NBA level is, like, what do you think how would you compare those to kind of see how he's played?
It's a big jump, but the French league is, I would say, the most athletic league outside of the NBA and the G League. So I think, of course, there's a huge jump in athleticism from any league to the NBA, but I don't think that it will be that much of a problem. And he played with a few NBA guys, like Kyle Quinn was one of his teammates there.
Oh yeah.
But he's had a lot of experience. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of experience, but he's had over the past couple of summers experience playing with the French national team, which, I mean, all of those guys are NBA guys, from Ntilikina to Evan Fournier to Gobert. So I think they've kind of been, prepping him for the big jump. But either way, I mean, whether you're college, G League, Euro League, you can't duplicate NBA athleticism.
Yeah, interesting stuff about Kamagate. I'm really interested to walk through some of the stuff from him and see if he ends up being a Mavs pick. Koloko's a guy we've talked about before. Coming up, let's get into a couple of these wings. There are a bunch of wings in the range of where the Mavs are. What does Rafael think about these wings? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. It's simple and easy to use. You pick 2 to 5 players. It's an over-under on their projections. You can win up to 10 times on any entry. It's just you versus the projected numbers. You can make an entry in like 60 seconds or less. All you have to do is head to prizepicks.com. You can pick the over-under. Let's say you think Steph Curry is going to score over 30 points. Their over-under is 30, maybe it's 31 and a half. You pick the over, then you can pick the over-under on somebody else for rebounds, Draymond Green for assists. You can pick over-under for Jason Tatum on points, all kinds of stuff. Put it in Prize Picks, and then you can win money. So you can put down $20, you can win $100. They have all kinds of multipliers and different things. Go check it out. Try it before you submit your entry. But for right now, Prize Picks is an exclusive no-brainer of an offer for all of our users. They will get $50 for free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Use the promo code NBA. It's available for you. Use the promo code NBA. If your player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point, you win $50. Check it out, prizepicks.com. The ultimate mock draft starts June 18th. Rafael and I spent a couple hours together recording it, going over all the picks. Isaac and I made a pick in the ultimate mock draft, and we traded up. And I'll give you a spoiler, a little bit of a tease. Rafael loved our pick in the ultimate mock draft. Check it out wherever you get your podcast. The ultimate mock draft starting on June 16th. All right, Isaac Harris, we are here with Rafael Barlowe from NBA Big Board. And we're talking about the Mavs and the draft. And right now, we're talking about some of the bigs. Now let's get into some of those wings in the draft. Rafael, if the Mavs take a wing, who do you think it should be? And who are the guys in that range do you think they should be looking at?
That's a tough question because, in my opinion, once you get from 15 through 35, I don't think that there's that much of a difference between those guys. So it could be a wing that goes 17, and it wouldn't shock me. If the same guy goes at 34, I wouldn't be shocked either. Some of the wings that could be available, maybe it's somebody like Bryce McGowens from the University of Nebraska. I think he's more of an upside guy. I don't know how much he'd be able to come in and contribute right away. As far as guys that could just possibly come in and fill out a role, which the Mavs need shooting, every team needs shooting, maybe Christian Brown. Maybe not the sexiest pick, but he does have a role as an athlete that can knock down open shots. Man, it's really tough because there's such a wide range of guys that could be in that range. For example, Ochai Agbaji. Some people think he's a lottery pick. I think he could end up in the lottery, but if he falls, and this is probably a name that Mavs fans probably don't want to hear about, but if he falls, he could end up being like Desmond Bane. So there are some similarities as far as 4-year guys that shot over 40% from three, and it was kind of held against Bane because he was an older prospect, and there were rumors saying that teams didn't like him because he had short arms or whatever. But if Agbaji falls, I don't think the Mavs will make the same mistake twice.
So Jake LaRavia, when it comes to wings in this range, I watched the set down. You went and watched him work out, spent time with him. When we're talking about, he's a bigger wing, 6'8", maybe 6'9", shoot the lights out, went to the combine, shut it down pretty early at the combine after he did some drills and stuff. But I've heard you talk about him on your podcast. What's your thoughts on him for Mavs fans for a fit in Dallas?
I like that. I think he's more so of a 4 than a wing. but he's someone that can shoot the ball well. I've mentioned it on the podcast that if he would have shot more threes or shot in volume, he'd probably be more highly regarded. Only took about 2 a game, but shot 38%. Used to be a point guard in high school, so he does have some skills, maybe not necessarily as like a secondary ball handler, but just the passing instincts and being able to make plays for others. And he's a much better defender than people give him credit for. And I know he tested in like the top 5 and like the shuttle run, which is kind of a way to, I guess, assess how well guys move their feet. I would love that fit for Dallas because I think that he gives them another passer, another shooter, and just someone that is a connector.
Could you make me feel like good just for a second of saying that Tari Eason could possibly drop? Can you just give my hopes up?
It's this guy.
Would that be like getting my hopes up, or should I just go ahead and just not even think about it?
No, I would consider it. I don't know if he falls that far, but like I said, there's such a
don't do it to me, Rob.
There's such a thin line between 15 through 35. Somebody's going to fall, right? And that was the thing that I realized at the combine. Like 40 out of my top 60 players didn't even play a game at the combine. So that means there's 40 guys that their agents have told them, you don't need to do the combine. You're going to be a first round pick. So I do think that one of these wings that you may like is going to really fall, whether it's Tari Eason, whether it's Malachi Branham, it could be Agbaji, it could be even someone like Jaden Hardy. Someone is going to be available because, I mean, I just don't think that there's, like I said, a huge difference between 15 and 35.
Now, hold on. You said a wing that will drop. So I don't know if Jaden Hardy matches the wings that we like.
I think that is probably the best possibility of dropping, to be honest with you.
Really? Well, what's from a Dallas angle, what's the G League guys, Beauchamp, Jaden Hardy? Do you see which one, if you said, hey, I would rather have this guy in Dallas if you had to pick between the two?
I would go with Hardy simply because he has the shot creation that you like. He's someone that if he didn't play for the G League this year and if he took the Shaden Sharp route, he would have been a top 10 pick. Some people thought he was a top 5 guy coming into the season. And he was compared to like Jalen Green, not the same level as athlete, but a dynamic scorer who they thought could possibly play some lead ball handler role or show some point guard skills. And then Dyson Daniels just kind of took over as their primary ball handler, and he didn't really get the opportunity to. And then he struggled with efficiency, but he is a guy that can create his own shot. He can get hot in a hurry, and he was their leading scorer for the G League, which is a professional team. So he could fall, and I think that would be a good pick for Dallas.
Which players do you think are the best fit for the Mavs? Just in that general range of like, I don't know, 20 to 30, if you those guys that you're putting on your big board and you say, this is a really good fit for the Mavs.
So I would go with Kamagate first. I think he provides the athletic rim runner, vertical lob threat. I think he could be an upgrade over Powell, who a lot of people seem to just kind of, I've sat at the games and I've heard the groans every time he touches the ball. But
I mean, when we do three playoff rounds in a row where, you know what, guys, it's just not Dwight series. Like, it's not.
So, I think Kamagate could be an upgrade. I like the LaRavia fit there. Hardy, I mean, a lot of guys that we mentioned. I would say my sleeper would be Koloko, which I mentioned, someone that they worked out a little thin, but was a great rim protector in college, and the skill set that he's been able to showcase since he left is outside shooting. Shot the ball well at the combine, and if he becomes like this vertical lob threat, rim runner / rim protector / pick and pop guy, then he would have some value, especially playing with someone like Luka.
That's good. We got time for any more on this one?
Yeah, give another one.
Okay, so we're talking about Jaden Hardy, and one of my things I've kind of bigger storylines I've been throwing out about this draft is like some of these bigger swings, like these big question marks of Shaden Sharp, Jaden Hardy, Beauchamp kind of in a way. But Pat Baldwin, how far does he drop? What I mean, we did a little profile on him a few days ago. We did his whole background story of top 5 recruit, and then just his whole past year of, playing for his dad and getting hurt and just everything. How far does he drop? He met with the Mavs at the combine. Like, is he a Mavs fit at all? What are you even thinking / hearing about Baldwin?
Well, I'm probably very biased when it comes to this, right? And so I'm going to come off as a hater. But I tell people, if his name was Pat Banneker and we didn't know anything about his resume from when he was a junior in high school, would we be talking about him as a potential draft pick? Dang. He tested bad at the combine. He had like one of the lowest vertical leaps, it was just
it looked like a clerical error. Like he had a worse vertical than Drew Timme.
Yeah, exactly. And so the skill set that he's supposed to be able to hang his hat on is his outside shooting. And he did not shoot the ball well at Wisconsin, Milwaukee, or Milwaukee, whatever. And when is the last time we've seen a guy that was drafted from a mid-major that did not like dominate the conference?
Yeah.
And so I feel like he has been given, he's dealt with some injuries, which is another topic. So I feel like he's been given a pass because he was so highly regarded coming out of high school. But he missed the majority of his senior year with an injury. And I think he played 11 games this year. So you're really talking about 2 back-to-back seasons where he hasn't been healthy. So that alone is an issue to me because of the injuries. But I just haven't seen him as this knockdown shooter that he was described as. I mean, even at the under-19s last year, he didn't shoot the ball well in college. So that's why I made the comment. If his name was Pat Banneker, and if we'd had no idea of the high school resume, we would not even be talking about him right now. So that scares me.
It's fascinating. Yeah. We'll bring Rafael Barlowe back tomorrow for a couple more questions, ton of more stuff on the draft. Coming up is Ismael Kamagate. Rafael was raving about him. Thinks he's a really interesting prospect for the Mavs. He worked out for the Mavs. Is he the center that the Mavs could take at 26? We'll talk about that coming up. But before you do that, let me tell you about BetOnline, the fastest, best way to check out all the odds and lines and props and spreads in sport. They have the first 5 picks for the NBA draft. They have those odds available right now. Jabari Smith Jr., minus 195 to be the number 1 pick. Chet Holmgren, plus 125. Paolo Banchero, plus 900 to be the number 1 pick. Let's go all the way to the 5th pick because that one's interesting to me. Keegan Murray, minus 125 to go number 5 overall. Shaedon Sharpe, plus 225. Then Jaden Ivey plus 350. They think he's going to be gone already. Dyson Daniels, Benedict Mathurin are the 5 that you can get odds on for the number 5 pick to go to the Pistons. Interesting. They have baseball odds. They have WNBA odds. They have other kind of NBA odds for the finals. Check them all out. It's BetOnline. It's where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris. We're continuing our draft profiles with Ismael Kamagate. We know that the Mavericks have worked him out. They brought him in for a workout. They didn't start their workouts until like last week. It was really late. They started these draft workouts, or at least it seemed late to us. But Ismael Kamagate was one of those. He's 6'11", 230 pounds. He has a reported 7'3" wingspan. He's going to be 21 and a half years old at the time of the draft. He's been playing in France for Paris over the last couple of years. The one-sentence description from NBA.com is he's a lanky, late-blooming center with a massive reach, good leaping ability, and some budding scoring ability who merged as more of a factor this season than last season, despite Paris's promotion to the French First Division. Isaac Harris, what are your thoughts on Ismael Kamagate?
I like him a lot. I just got around to watching a lot of tape on him, film stuff, reading more about him. He was a soccer player too, growing up, born in France.
And you can tell.
Yeah. And he started playing basketball when he was 13. I was reading this story on him that his mother and his doctor advised him to switch to basketball.
Hey, there's this sport. Do you know about it? Instead ball, you throw it in this basket.
Yeah, it's just, he's such a fascinating, prospect because, he's 21. He thought about coming into the draft last year. He did this a great one-on-one interview at basketballnews.com and recently, and just talked about why he didn't come out of the draft last year. He wanted to do some more work, but it's one of those things where there are a lot of good questions of that, like who he compares his game to and how he watches, Durant. He liked OKC up until Durant left, and he watches Embiid and Giannis. He watches these guys, but I thought it was also unique too, because he didn't say that his game resembles those guys. We see that all the time. Like, oh yeah, I watch these guys and I think I'll beat Durant. No, he went with Bam, and he said he thinks his game can resemble Bam, and I actually really, really like that. But Kamagate, as we say, is a French guy who his agent Bouna Njai is, a guy has connections to, the Mavs. He's a Dallas guy, Dallas agent, Dallas-based agent. Rudy Gobert. A lot of the French guys are, Nick Batum, Victor Wembanyama is coming up soon. Is through Bouna. So Kamagate, that's the obvious connection to Dallas is through him. But, another connection to Dallas, though, he worked out with Holger.
Oh,
he worked out with Holger. Kamagate did. So
Shut it down!
I really like him as a prospect, and just the more I watched him, the more I liked him. And then I was like, all right, I was comparing him against some other bigs in this range that we've talked about. And I think I'm comfortable of saying that of all the bigs in that range, I would want him. I want him over Koloko. I want him over even my guy, Jalen Williams at Arkansas. I like him a lot. You guys know that. I like Kamagate a lot.
The thing about him is he's got the impressive frame, right? Just about 7 feet, 7'3" wingspan, but he's got good mobility. Like you said, he grew up playing soccer. He's got good mobility. He's quick on his feet around the rim. He just flies up. I mean, you watch any highlight of him, and it's just so many of these alley-oop dunks that he can just catch from anywhere. If you just imagine him playing with Luka, you're just like, oh, he's going to catch that. He's going to catch that. He's going to catch that. Like, there's going to be so many lobs for him. Flash some passing ability. And he's got a little potential as a mid-range shooter, right? Like, there's just a little bit there.
It's not ugly.
Like, it's not.
The form is there. I actually like the form a lot.
He did an interview with Rafael Barlowe on his NBA Draft Junkies YouTube channel. And he went over there. He was in France, and he talked to him. And he said, I want to show that I have a jump shot, and I have the 2-point shot. I'm working on my threes, but I have a 2-point shot. And it's like, that guy's going to be 21, like at the start of the season. It's not out of range that in like 3 or 4 years, he's stepping out and hitting threes from distance. And so all of a sudden you're talking about a guy with this incredible frame that can defend the rim pretty well and can step out and possibly hit a shot. Now that's theoretical. That's not realized right now. The
shot's theoretical, yeah.
Yeah, the shot is theoretical, but all that other stuff, I mean, he's right there. The weakness is he's still kind of learning. He had this progression up in the French league that he jumped from one league to another, but he did pretty well when he had to jump up and when he had to go up to that next stage. But he's still learning. Obviously, he's not gonna post up for you. He's not gonna go get you a bucket. He's got a couple of hook shots and things around in the post, but he's not gonna go get you a bucket down there. He's not I wouldn't say he's the incredible, insane rim protector at this point. He's good.
Yeah, he's got length, though.
Got length, and the feet and all that is incredible, but I wouldn't put him up there with, he's going to be elite from day one, right? Which is just kind of hard.
He's not Rudy Gobert, but, he can defend the paint.
Right.
For sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when it comes to shots around the basket, that's the thing. NBA.com, their profile of him, it says 1.42 points per shot around the rim in the half court. That's in the 90th percentile. He ranked among the international leaders in dunks, displaying a huge catch radius. This is you're defining the type of center that would excel next to Luka Doncic. And
one that you added the bullpen, right? This is what we've been talking about, is they need to add another guy. They need to add a guy that can pick and roll and can finish around the rim like Dwight kind of does, but also can defend the rim and can step out in space a little bit. Now, he's not going to defend guards at an elite level, but he can step out in space, and his feet are good enough that he's going to move, and he's not going to be played off the floor super fast, right? We're not talking about Walker Kessler. We're not talking about a big like that.
The Mavs are going to take Kessler.
I know, and we're going to have to bring Richard back up Mavs draft on, and we're just going to have to eat all the words we said.
But to talk about him switching on the perimeter, I literally went to Synergy and just watched all of this isolation isolation possessions. And I was like, all right, I just want to see how you do on the switches. His defensive stance is what is really impressive. This dude gets, we're getting really kind of technical here, but like he gets so low in his defensive stance for a 7-footer that it's like, that's what's really impressive. That a lot of times you see a guy, 7-footers, paint protectors, they're not like fully lean, but he is so engaged. His knees are bent so much that he is kind of lighter on his feet. I mean, obviously some smaller guys are going to get to the rim past him, but he can switch, and it's not like lockdown, but he's not getting ran past either. I was impressed by it.
Availability. Rafael had him on his big board at 21. That's the highest that I've seen from anybody. The Ringer had him out of the top 38. Like the Ringer's big board only goes to 38 this year, and he didn't have him in the big board at all. ESPN mocked him at 40, and The Athletic mocked him at 45. So he's probably going to be there for the Mavs. And that this is a definite player that you could say, hey, this guy will probably be available for the Mavs there. If you talk about his NBA comp, you mentioned in that interview with Rafael that he did, Clint Capella is a guy that he models his game after. Rafael even, I think, mentioned that either in this episode or tomorrow's episode about how he models his game after Clint Capella, thinks he can have that same kind of trajectory where it might take a year in the G League or something like that, like Rudy Gobert did, like Clint Capella did, for him to just catch up. And then all of a sudden, like Clint Capella was in the G League one year and then it was starting for the Rockets the next year, right? It may just take that where he just catches up and then all of a sudden he's ready to go.
Yeah, I put Capella. I put Ibaka again. And then I put Mavs fans. I know we're going to have a distaste for this one, but a younger DeAndre Jordan in the sense of his catch radius is going to be big. Yeah. He's not the, hey, baptizing Brandon Knight type of thing, but man, I was debating on clipping some things and doing like a Kamagate thread today on Twitter. I was so excited about it because there are some dunks that he had that were like, whoa, like not even like transition dunks. Like, hey, he catches it like on the floor in the paint and just turns around, just dunks over people. And I'm like, all right, I would love to see this in Dallas.
And it's like he catches it around the 3-point line and can do like a couple dribbles and get to the rim too, right? Like it's not only just catch around the rim and dunk, right? There's a couple of things he can do in there, which like extends his limits, right?
For sure. So you asked like why does Dallas not take Kamagate in this range? Because he is a little still raw. I mean, I don't have much answers outside of that unless you just, hey, you don't take Kamagate because you want a wing. If you're wanting a big in this range, then like he's the swing for it. And unless you want somebody like a Jalen Williams that has, that is so well-rounded right now that you're like, all right, I could throw him into a series. He could probably play right now. Or you believe in like this potential of the outside shot of Koloko, maybe a little bit more, then Kamagate is my favorite big man prospect in this range.
Yeah. The reason why you don't take him is you just like somebody else in that range better. Right. Maybe somebody drops. Maybe there's somebody that we don't expect to be there. But the Mavs, why the Mavs shouldn't take him. If I'm just going to go straight up on who he is, he's almost 22 when the season starts, and he's still a prospect. So like he's older, and he's not like he's still a project. He's not like Jalen Brunson coming in where we said, okay, he's going to be ready from day one. He's older, but he's going to be a little bit more ready to come in and contribute right away. I'm not sure about Kamagate with that. Rafael
Koloko's 22, by the way. Just throw that out.
But that was going to be my other point, is that Koloko is kind of the same thing. He's 7 foot with a 7'5" wingspan, and you're like, okay, well, he seems to be a little bit of a project, but he's 22, so it's not like there's another option there. And we've already talked about Walker Kessler. We've already talked about some of these other bigs that'll be available. It's not like there's another option that'll be there at 26 for the Mavs. So there's a bunch of reasons, I guess, why to not take him. But why you take him is he would be the perfect, if it all pans out, let's say the jumper pans out, his mobility pans out, everything pans out for him. He is the big rim protecting, rim running center that can finish around the basket, that can maybe step out and hit a shot, definitely step out and hit a 2-point shot, but maybe eventually extend his range to 3-point range that the Mavs have been looking for.
Yeah. And going back to what you said earlier, he would be a part of the rotation, the bullpen rotation. Like you're not drafting him, we're hyping him up, but like you're not drafting him saying, hey, you're going to be our starting center playing 30 minutes a night, night one. You're drafting him to add to the rotation, possibly get some G League time, and say, hey, let's do this. Like, we want to commit to a path for you to get better, develop everything with that. It's just his skills and like what he's good at could fit perfect in Dallas. We're going to, at some point I'll tweet out, we'll talk a little bit more closer to draft, like maybe a top 3 for us or a top 5 for us individually of like, hey, these are some of the guys that we want. He's going to be on my list as far as like in top. If we had to pick 5 guys in this range that I'm like, hey, I would be happy if Dallas takes one of these guys. Kamagate would be one of the guys.
Absolutely. There you go. Guys, hope you enjoyed that episode. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day. Be sure to check out the Locked On NBA Big Board. Rafael Barlowe, who you just heard earlier with Richard Stamen, Mavs Draft on Twitter, NBA drafts, mock drafts, player rankings, big boards, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.